Hello, everyone. I'm Corey LeBlanc. I'm one of the co-founders and the Chief Operating Officer, as well as Chief Technology Officer for Locality Bank. And I wanted to start today real quick with a quick story. And, back here in July, it was actually announced that by an entity named RockU 2024, that they exposed 9,948,575,739 unique passwords in plain text that all of us are probably using every single day to log into some of the most important systems in our life. And it took me a long time to say that number because it is a huge number. And that's the one that was disclosed. That is not just the total number of passwords probably compromised in this world. I mean, that's just realistic, that there's probably a lot more than that. This password leak was actually announced by a user named Obamacare, of all names. And it's put a little thought into, I think, a number of people's minds of what are we doing to better protect ourselves from malicious actors. How is cybersecurity impacting our lives today, and how are we able to utilize cybersecurity to better protect our organizations and our personal selves? With that, I'm going to turn it over to my guest with me today, Mike, to do an introduction, because we have a lot of things to talk about. Because as scary as this is just a small part of the things that we're facing every single day. So, Mike?
Yeah, that's right. Hey, Corey. Good to be here. Everybody, my name is Mike Sanchez. I am the Chief Information Security Officer for a company called UDT, United Data Technologies. And I've been in this role now, or I've had experience in the cybersecurity world for about 15 years now. I've seen it and done it all, I think, in terms of attacks. But we're always learning in this field, right? And it's kind of scary out there today. The world is very hectic, and I'm calling 2024. I've been calling 2024 for a number of months now, the year of cyber chaos, right? Because
cyber chaos, huh?
Cyber chaos, man. We're seeing it. We're living it. There's groups out there intent on causing disruption, grabbing data, making that data unusable. And then, the groups that want to do ransomware and hold extort you from of money. So, we've seen a real significant increase in the number of attacks, right, that we're seeing so far. And I think that's just the tip of the iceberg. I think it's about to get worse, just because of there's unrest in the Middle East. There's this big election around the corner, and some people may be happy with the outcome. Some people may not be happy with the outcome. But along the way, I think we're gonna experience some disruptions, making sure that somehow people think that they can influence the way people vote, and it's not the usual parties. But it's not just the usual. How can I say this? The usual state actors that we hear in the news, right? From international places. There's a lot of domestic stuff going on as well that we're seeing. And that we'll continue to see. We'll see a real step up in attacks between now and January, February.
So is that kind of why you said chaos, Mike?
Absolutely.
Because before, right? I mean, me and you both cut our teeth in cybersecurity way back in the day. I think we both wear it a little bit, the stresses of things. But it used to be a lot easier, right, to be able to detect and understand where things are coming from, or where you should be blocking from. But today, that's entirely different, right? To your point, there's a lot of stuff going on domestically. There's all these, VPNs and anonymous type ways to be able to mask yourself and really get through some of the perimeter security controls and stuff that a lot of companies and people have been using and depending on traditionally.
Going back to your original story.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a couple of ways that a bad actor can get into your environment, right? One of the reason why they steal so many usernames and passwords is it makes it easier for them to try to start pinging your network and those devices that are externally facing, right? So it makes it easier for them. Instead of sending out a phishing campaign, they have this database they can tap into or they can buy from. These usernames and creds already there for them, and they can start using those to try to see what's available publicly and that they can start exploring. The bad actors, they live off the land, right? They're sometimes it's not that targeted. So the creds are extremely valuable for them. And I think what's going on is, I think, back in the day it was a little simpler because we didn't have things like AI generating 10,000 email phishing contents, right, to help you send out different email campaigns, trying to get somebody to click on those things. And so we're dealing with more volume in terms of the incoming attacks.
Yeah, and I think that when you think about how most people understand the threat landscape, it is this thought that it's targeted, right? That someone wants to get after company XYZ,
right?
And so they're going to start this massive hack attempt. They're going to try to breach. That's not the case, right? It's low-lying fruit or low-hanging fruit.
That's it.
These malicious actors are acting upon. The reality is, at least in my opinion, and I'm curious to get your thoughts on this too, Mike, is that, if you're targeted, it's almost impossible to be 100% secured, right? And it probably is impossible to be 100% secured across the board anyway. But if you're targeted, these people have so much resources, so much ability and time. They're going to find holes. They're going to figure out ways to get into things. So I think for the sake of the conversation today is understanding what can people be doing to not be that low-hanging fruit.
Yeah.
So that when they're not targeted, because like what you said, right? Most of these breaches are not happening because the company or the entities were targeted, but because they had the information that worked to get them into the networks to start doing the reconnaissance to go actually make money on these things. Because the reality is most of these things are backed by some sort of financial gain, at the very least, at least from what we see in the banking industry. But with that, Mike, what are some of the most common cybersecurity threats that you're seeing today that are, people on the personal side or people in banking or in the commercial business space are seeing today that they should be really, really concerned and at least conscious of or have some idea of how to protect against?
Yeah. So look, it really comes down to what I call the top 4 attack vectors. It doesn't matter, and it doesn't really matter the industry, from a fundamental standpoint. Okay. So you're the number 1 attack vector that these guys are using most is the phishing attacks. And there's a couple reasons why they continue using phishing attacks. Number 1, it's a numbers game. They know at least 1% to 2% of the people that they send this stuff out is going to click on a link or download an attachment. And the reason why they're sending the phishing attacks is because they either want to deliver a malware, right? So that comes with the attachment of the email, or they want you to click on a link to provide credentials for them that they couldn't get, from these databases that or all these records have been stolen from, right? And then the third one, which really impacts the financial services industry and a lot of commercial clients, is what we call business email compromise. That specifically is focused in creating fraud, right? There's an intent there where they send you an invoice, and in the invoice it says, hey, you owe me this amount, and by the way, my banking information changed, so update your record so you can send me payment to this new bank account. And we're really seeing a lot of those happening now, more so than last year. It's really evolved, and it's really gotten. And the way they use the content and the way that they spoof websites, they mimic your website, it's really gotten they've stepped it up to another level in terms of the content, right? So phishing emails, that is something that technology alone doesn't handle, right? You got to do a number of things, and I'll touch upon those a little later here. But phishing is going to continue, and it's coming. Right, you stand a 94% probability of experiencing a phishing attack between the next 12 to 18 months. You can guarantee that. Take that to the bank.
I would almost say that within the next 12 to 18 minutes, you're probably going to get some sort of phishing attempt, because I'm going to tell you, I get probably like at least a dozen of these a day.
Yeah.
Either trying to mimic me or mimic one of my co-founders, our CEO, or one of our investors. I mean, they come in text messages, email, all this stuff. And weirdly, and I'm somewhat of a storyteller, so I love kind of talking in stories sometimes.
I like that.
We had a person, we'll just say, reached out to me via another resource, another colleague that I have. They had gotten compromised at another bank, and they weren't thinking that the bank was helping them in the way that they should, right? So what happened was this company's CEO went on vacation. He posts pictures from like Spain or something like that on his social media, right? Real time. Hey, we're here today. We're having a great time. Just really taking in this relaxing moment with my family, right? Super nice, right? Everyone wants to be able to share those things with friends and family. But what these malicious actors did was that they had already compromised the CEO's email.
Yeah.
Right. They knew this. And then they see this on social media. They send an email to the CFO of this company saying, hey, I am out of pocket. I don't have access to the systems. I need to send this. I think it was like $1 million plus wire out to this other company for payment. Can you take care of this for me today? Thank you, Mr. CFO. CFO goes in, says, no problem. I got it. I get it. I don't want to interrupt this guy's vacation. Sends the wire. And nothing is known until the CEO comes back and says, where the hell did my money go? And to which then they found out all this problem. So they reach out to their bank. They start talking to that bank. The bank says, listen, you validated the wire. We sent it according to your rules. There was nothing we could do to protect you. And he thought that the bank was responsible, which they weren't. But when he got to me, it was, hey, are they more responsible than I think? No, they weren't, because like you got, and then the bank followed their procedures and protocols to keep you protected, but it was flawed, right?
Right.
On the customer side. But then the next thing that they needed help with was they said, well, Corey, we're trying to report this to the FBI because we want to get our money back, which good luck, right? That you're getting the money back. But the FBI said it's going to be 60 to 90 days before they reach back out to us about this account filing. That's ridiculous. Don't they know this is a lot of money? I said, yes, they do. But they have that much of a backlog of these type of stories. And so this is one story that I just got to interact with because someone thought I could help them get to the front of the line at the FBI because I have a number of colleagues in that space. But no, there was nothing we could do to help them because the reality is there's so much of this happening.
That's it. So and people are getting overwhelmed with that. I mean, I'll give you another story here. I mean, it happened here at UDT. We got one of those spoofed emails coming into our accounts payable department from a vendor that says, hey, you owe us this amount balance, but my banking information has changed. Send me the money to this bank account. Luckily, we have some safe words that we use in terms of control, right? So the person that got the invoice kind of already found it it didn't jive with the prior information that she was sent. So that was a trigger. And we have all out training and awareness campaigns here on a monthly basis, right? We don't do our training and awareness quarterly. We do it monthly because we want to make sure that people here are aware of the contents that we're seeing in the marketplace, right? And threat landscape. And so she was able to spot some things that didn't look right on the email itself, on the content, on the invoice itself. But we have a security control that says, hey, you can't wire money out without a second person, and that person needs to confirm a safe word that we've set up between those people that handle payments, especially wire payments. So that's one of the controls that you need to put in place immediately.
Absolutely. And that's great advice, right? Because those are the types of things. First, I thought you were about to tell us a story about you guys getting got, but it's a story about how your procedure stopped it from happening when the first step had already been taken, right?
Yeah. Look, and that takes time, right? I mean, that's nothing's 100% guaranteed in this world, especially in the cyber world. I'm very careful the way I say things that we have in place. We're always learning new things here. We're very humble in terms of the way that, hey, cyber is a serious thing. Serious actors out there. And you've got to, but it all comes down to the fundamentals, Corey, right? And when I say fundamentals is, look, technology alone is not going to fix all these problems. It's a mixture of technology plus procedures.
Yeah.
You've got to be disciplined with procedures.
Yeah.
Things like email phishing campaign, there's 3 simple controls that you can enable right now or check in your systems, right? To kind of to minimize the number of these email phishing campaigns that are coming at you, right? One of them is DKIM, the other one is DMARC, and the other one is SPF rules, right? I don't want to go down the rabbit hole on the technology side.
We can throw all the acronyms out here, Mike. It's all good. Because look, if anyone listening to this doesn't know what those mean, at the very least, you should know that you should know what those mean.
Look them up.
Right? Or find someone like you guys that can help, guide someone to a better space where they can be better protected, right? Again, because there's no 100% solution here, but we can try to help a little bit. So kind of keeping to that thought, though, obviously you talked about this being chaos year. Yeah. And you see that continuing into next year. What are some emerging things in your expertise do you see coming down the pipe that we should really be conscious of? What are those things that maybe we don't think about? And then as you talk about that, tell me, what role do you think some of the emerging technologies and the way that we use technology today and continues to evolve to use is playing a role in that, evolution a little bit?
All right. So let me just say this. So AI, you hear AI everywhere, right? So AI has evolved at such a rapid pace that you need to step back and understand, how do I control the flow of data that my employees use with a ChatGPT or a Copilot, for instance? How do I monitor what's being sent into those channels? So data security in terms of sharing, right? And you can't stop AI from evolving anymore. From people love AI at this point, right? It makes working a lot more efficient. But what kind of data you can paste into the chat zone there, and what's private, and how you monitor that is a real challenge. You got to be on top of the controls that are safeguarding those efforts. And that's going to take some time because you got to learn how to.
And you're specifically talking, though, about not just, hey, we're using these tools and services, and these tools or services could have some sort of compromise to them, but the data in which we're sharing to these models, right, that are public.
Absolutely.
And if that information is given to the wrong person, what do they have?
That's right. Yeah. At the end of the day, you don't know where that data is residing. So let's say you upload your financial statements up to ChatGPT, right, with all your information. All of a sudden, you've just uploaded a document sitting in the cloud somewhere. You don't know. I mean, I don't know who has access to that data, but you just shared a confidential document with ChatGPT, hoping to get back the great answers of how to put together an executive summary, right, for your board meeting.
Hey, you saved yourself 10, 15 minutes at the very least, Mike. I don't know how much that's worth to someone, but it's not worth compromise for me. I think I would rather.
But it happens, right? So
absolutely.
We're trying to establish best practices right now on how to deal with that, how to control that. The QR codes, right? So QR codes is a sheep in wolf's clothing.
You scared the crap out of me about this the other day when we were talking, because I didn't realize the extent of this.
So the QR codes is, they're everywhere now. If you don't trust a source, especially if you go to a physical parking space and you want to pay for your parking and you hit up one of those QR codes, right, to make it easier for you, just know that somebody can paste or stick a code that's malicious in nature in that QR code, and all of a sudden you're being rerouted somewhere else that you don't want to be routed to, and you're giving credentials including your payments. And there's nothing right now. There's nothing in a mobile device or in a PC that can pick up the malware code in that QR code image. Nothing, right? So that scares the heck out of me. And so I'm always making sure that our employees understand confirm the source and make sure it's you know 100% it's right before you snap that thing.
And it kind of goes back to some basic principles that we used to follow, which is like email links, right? Is you don't click on an email link. If someone says, hey, reset your password here on the link, just go to the source, right? If Apple's asking you to reset your password via an email, go to Apple's website, go to your secure login that you already know and trust, and then go reset your password there, right? Do you think that that's what we should be doing with QR codes today where we can? Is like, hey, if you have the parking app, don't scan the QR code, type the number.
Go to the website. Or go to the app, So do it that way, right? That's you're going to save yourself a potential, problem in terms of stealing your identity. And let me tell you, everybody always gives me the same response. Oh, my stuff is out there already. Everybody tells me that, right? When you're an end user. And my response is, man, you don't know the pain it is to try to resolve issues when your identity's been stolen, right? It might be out there, but you got to make it harder for these guys to leverage your identity and your credentials.
Had a buddy had his business compromised with ransomware at one point. Huge cost. Then I had another friend. This was like 2 years ago. Another friend who runs a business out on the West Coast. He had gotten his personal social media accounts compromised, which then got into his company's network because he used the same laptop. He used the same laptop for his personal as he did for his work, which, hey, by the way, not a good idea. People.
Not a good idea.
I posted something on LinkedIn a while back. My wife thought I was actually funny for once. I posted a picture and I said it was the Cybersecurity bullet. You do business in the front, party in the back. And so keep your business PC in the front, keep your personal laptop in the back, but keep them separate. But yeah, so they got compromised and we were trying to help them get all of their stuff cleaned up. And it was $20,000+ later, a couple new laptops, things like that, before they were sanitized. When simple little tips like what you were just saying would have resolved that without the cost and the headache that went into it.
Yeah, absolutely. But you mentioned what we're seeing in terms of. I just want to get back to so some of the emergent threats that we're seeing, of course, is the QR codes, the use of AI, not only for data security, but in the way that these hackers are using to create code. Right? I tell you, we've been using ChatGPT for a number of years now. 2022, when it first came out, we've been using it since then because it just does help you create that code sometimes. But what you don't know is. So it's helpful and it's also, it's a threat, right? Because the malicious actors use it to create these malicious codes. And ChatGPT is doing a better job now of trying to kind of filter, not give you the answers that easy. That so you can go out and create, malware on the fly. So they are doing a much better job at doing that. But it's still out there. But for instance, we use it in order to spot vulnerabilities in our own infrastructure because there's just a faster way of trying to identify what I don't see yet, right? So it's been extremely helpful there. But it also helps I can create, 100 different email content in use for an email phishing campaign. In 5 minutes or less, right? That's now we're talking about a voluminous amount of attacks coming at you because this one tool is helping you do that, right? And it's also, again, going back to the good and bad of ChatGPT or the AI tools. I may have bought, for instance, 1,000 email that have been compromised off the darknet, right? And I want to be able to explore that. And all of a sudden I see a grouping. I go after company X because I just got a lot of users under company X. So first of all, the employees of company X should not be using their company emails to sign up for personal things, right? Or personal websites.
Yeah, and most companies have that policy, right? And if you don't have the policy, make sure you're putting it in there. But that should be a staple in any policy when it comes to new hire user.
You would think so. You would think so, but it happens. right?
No, it doesn't stop it from happening, right? But the companies, if you're a business owner, you should be making sure that you're checking these things. And if you don't know how to check those things, or you don't have the time to check those things, you need to find someone to help you to do that, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So I know at Locality Bank and any bank that I've ever been with, and banks that I'm friends with, we have process, procedures, and policies around all of this stuff. And the regulators come in and check us, and they make sure this stuff. But it's still not fail-proof. But we spend a lot of time doing exactly what you just said. But for your typical small business owner or business owner, they probably don't, right?
They don't. I'm telling you, I see it in either a small business or a medium-sized business. We still see people out there, especially in the public sector. Like we still see the users that use their company email addresses to sign up for, let's say, a Brightline account, right? And that's not good, because if Brightline gets popped, all of a sudden they have all these usernames that they just gave up, for instance, and then your username now is part of that group that I can use to try to exploit your systems.
So what about this, Mike? This is something I've been curious about. And again, I cut my teeth in this space, but I'm much more on the banking, operating side, fintech, technology. I wish I could spend more time in cyber. I would love this stuff. But you spending every single day in it, what do you think about the sign-ins where you go create a new account with this website? They give you the opportunity to use your Google account or use your Apple account to sign up instead of creating a username and password. Is that a good thing or a bad thing in your opinion?
I mean, look, I always try to create a different account number instead of giving them that single sign-on access into a Gmail account or into an Apple account. I just try to segregate all that stuff out and not try to commingle it. Because then if one of them gets popped, then you start that chain reaction. Everything gets compromised from that company. But sometimes I use it just for the convenience of it, as long as they have multi-factor authentication enabled, right? To make it harder for these guys. If you have multi-factor authentication, whatever you're signing up for, if it has a way of doing the multi-factor authentication, that second step to authenticate, then I will use it. Yeah. But I try to shy away from it anyway. But just because I don't want to move.
So AI scares you. These password sign-in or single sign-on tools scare you. What else, Mike? What else is emerging?
Well, I did not so much emerging, but look, if you have a website that's externally facing, get that thing tested, because the probability of you getting tested by a bad actor on how well your safeguards are on that website, it's externally facing. Make sure you get it tested by a third party, because the probability is very high that you are going to be facing some type of attack this year, right? High probability, especially in the public sector. Make sure that you test it at least annually. Get a web app pen test done on that thing. Try to see if there's any vulnerabilities. Remember users, right? People forget, if they have an employee, they let the employee go, they forget to take him out of their systems. Got to take those users out of there, because what we call stale users, somebody that hasn't logged in for your systems for more than 90 days. You don't need that account just hanging out there, especially if it's a privileged account, because I'm going to be looking for that as a hacker. I'm going to be looking for something that looks to be like an admin account, and I'm going to try to leverage that in order to gain access into your systems. So important to make sure that you test your websites, and then understand what assets you have externally facing. So if you have a VPN or a firewall that's open up to the world, make sure that you can justify which countries you're doing business with that is justified to have telemetry coming into that firewall, right? Because we're seeing a lot of telemetry open, right, for incoming and outgoing telemetry just allowed through those firewalls, because again, we forget to check firewall configurations. Really simple, fundamental things that can reduce your overall exposure out there. So it's not as sexy as the AI or some type of emerging technology, but I can tell you that I'm giving you what we're seeing happen most often, right? So it's website attacks, it's the email phishing campaigns, it's the leveraging of external or accessing external facing assets and trying to exploit what you have out there.
Yeah. So for anyone listening here that's trying to learn something, who hears all this, this tech talk and some of the things, firewalls, boundary protection, all these different terms, just know that in today's world, if you're interacting with customers digitally in any way, shape, or form, or you have a website, they have these things, right? They have these holes in their firewalls and their systems. Their network teams or their security teams, if they have them, should know this stuff, should be doing it, but they should be making sure that the processes and procedures are reviewed at least annually, right? Because I know there's a lot in the banking world where we have to do things biannually, annually, but we've always erred on the side of caution, right? So if the regulators tell me that I have to do it twice a year, I'm going to do it 4 times a year because I'm not trying to pass the regulatory exam, right? I'm trying to keep our customers as safe as we possibly can. And to your point, there's no foolproof plan. So the best thing we can do is keep fighting at it as best possible. But everyone's dealing with this. But there's a lot of firewalls out there, a lot of companies that are set up that are allowing way more access into their systems than they should be because they put it together to make it easy for customers and access and get things working fast. But it's a concern, right? It's going to be a big problem in the future.
Yeah. And I mean, I know that there's a mixed audience population viewing this or hearing this, right? So I'm trying to cover as many of those as I can. But what I want to do is just I want to share this intelligence with, it's the most simple things that are really getting us in trouble that we see over and over and over again, right? That one of the things that I wanted to mention is the amount of denial of service attacks that we're seeing has already overtaken last year's number, because there's people, there's groups out there intent on causing disruption of services. So DDoS, or denial of service attacks, they kind of serve a couple of purposes. One is to bring your service down, right? And to try to, on purpose, I always view these denial of service attacks as red herrings, because while I may have sent you an email phishing campaign 3 months ago, somebody may have opened the attachment of that email, and there might have been a code that I just planted in your system. And then 3 months later, I come with this denial of service attack and I bring your services down. The only way that you bring them back up again is to restore your systems. And once you restore your systems, I can have that executable wake up and then do a ransomware attack or do reconnaissance on your network. So we're seeing that. It's not like I'm making it up.
Right.
And so you need to check with your ISP, your internet service provider, to see what kind of denial of service attacks, alerting or protections they have in place, because you don't want it. You may have your own protections in your location, but you want to make sure that you stop it at the originating source. So you want to be able to double check that that's enabled and blocking those attacks, because we're seeing a real increase in those right now.
Yeah, and I think you said something really interesting to me, and it's something that I try to remember to tell people as much as I possibly can is, and this probably shows my age a little bit more than the gray hair in my beard, but or the lack of hair on my head. But back in the day, right, when we were first getting on the internet, we were really doing a lot of things. You got a virus, you knew immediately because it started all these pop-ups and your screen went crazy and you're like, oh no, I got. But today, that's not the case, right? So you mentioned with the denial of service, you got this ransomware that's embedded in the network. These malicious actors are relying on being undetected for the longest period of time they possibly can, because they're doing that reconnaissance that you talked about, so they can find where they can get you best, right? And where they can maximize what it is that they're trying to do, which is, again, typically monetarily incentivized in some way, shape, or form. So with that thought, let's kind of move. I know we're about halfway through here. to some cybersecurity recommendations from Mike. What are some best practices that, someone on the personal side, just a consumer or a small business banking customer, or even financial institutions or other businesses in this financial services space can do to better protect their financial information online? What are some tips from Mike?
Look, so from a consumer standpoint, right? Because I think you and Locality Bank do a great job of trying to communicate with their end clients.
Mm-hmm.
And others don't, right? Others are worried about their own kind of fiefdom, and they forget that you have endpoints out there or end users that are trying to come into your network as well that are your clients, and you want to make sure that you share threat intelligence or best practices with them, right? So one of the things that we always look at is, your passwords can't be simple passwords. That make it harder for these guys. I know that this has been said many times, but look, get yourself a password management solution, right? And I'm not going to recommend one because I'm not in that business, but get yourself a password manager to help you sort through the passwords and make your passwords very long, like a passphrase. So something that you're going to remember, like I love dogs with a special character at the end, something like that. You got to do that, and then make sure that you use the services that you sign up for. Make sure that you use multi-factor authentication, right? So you have strong passwords, use multi-factor authentication. Always in this environment, I would urge everybody to just live in this paranoid state that I live in and you live in.
Yeah.
Just assume that everything you're getting by email, you got to double check.
Yeah. I mean, my wife calls me infinitely paranoid. That's what she calls me.
So we're twins. That we're living in that same environment. I trust nothing.
You talk about those password service. Obviously we use some of those. I personally use some. You talk about complex passwords. I actually use the randomly generated 20 character, 30 character, 40 character, whatever password length, that I need to set for the system. I use the multi-factor, but I'm still scared to death, right? Even with all of that stuff in place, I know that I can still get compromised. And so I'm still checking everything every day. So even with the passwords, I think checking your stuff as well. So if you're a bank account customer, log into your bank accounts, I don't care if it's your savings account and you don't ever use it and no money should be moving. Make sure no money's moving.
Yeah.
Right? Because we try to make it so easy for our customers to be able to move money and transact. But at the same time, it also makes it really easy for malicious actors if they have compromised your password to log in and they've compromised your device to get your MFA. This happens. This isn't like pie in the sky futuristic stuff. This happens every single day.
Yeah.
Log in, check your stuff. The faster you catch these things, the easier it is to mitigate, right?
Yeah. And then have some, we're still talking to consumers, right? So if you're a consumer, just make sure you have the latest antivirus software installed in your machine, for God's sakes. So you want to make this stuff harder for these guys, not easier, right? And then, one thing that is emerging, it's been around for a while, but it is gaining a lot more traction. I don't know if you've noticed, but the number of SMS messages that you're getting, your text messages that you're getting from, right, that you're getting from these numbers, like,
oh my goodness. Yeah.
So don't click on any of that stuff. Be slow to react to things that are saying, hey, your Netflix account is, past due. You're going to have right? Because those, you see those and you kind of panic immediately. You second guess yourself and you say, oh my God, I got to click on this link to get this thing paid. Be slow to react to these text messages, double check them. And again, never click on anything. Never click on anything, for God's sake.
Yeah.
Unless you're 100% certain that who you're getting it from.
Double check and triple check as well, right?
Absolutely, 100%.
I think the ones that scare me the most, the text messages, and I've gotten a lot of these lately, is where they send you the message saying, thank you for your purchase.
That's it.
Click here to check your order details, or thank you for your purchase. Click here to get your tracking information, because they know as consumers, they understand our behavior. We're all on Amazon. We're all ordering stuff almost every single day. We're all expecting to get it in a day or two. Yep. And so they're relying on us just to move fast, right? And it scares me to death when I see them, because I mean, I'm not clicking on them. I do my best not to click on them for sure. But But every time I see it, I think about my customers. I think about my friends, my family. I'm like, oh, this would have got a few of them. I guarantee you.
Yeah. So there's two things that we're seeing there, right? The shipment one is always is being used a lot just because somebody's always getting something either from Amazon or something else. And so the people are quick to react to those, and they usually fall for the trap, right? So be careful with those on the shipment side. If you get an SMS messages that seems to be coming from a friend that says, "Hello, I lost my phone and I got to recreate my contact list." Listen, don't respond, because chances are they're trying to validate whether the phone number exists or not, so they can come back at you again with a subsequent attack that gives you a link or tries to get you to enter your username and password information. So yeah, SMS, text messaging, we're seeing a lot of those. So training and awareness, right? Make sure you understand what the latest and greatest attacks are. The government there's a government website called CISA.gov, CISA.gov.
Yep.
It does provide a lot of good recommendations in terms of for consumers and what to look out for, especially on the fraud side, right? People should log into that and look at the latest and greatest threat intelligence that are coming from that website, are being posted there, and the best practices around ransomware. Even for a small business, it's a great website to kind of put the fundamentals in place.
Yeah. What about businesses? So consumers, obviously there's a lot there, phishing and all this stuff, but what about business owners?
Right. So business owners, understand, look, the first thing that I see happen when I get called into an incident is people don't have a plan. Right? Mm-hmm. So imagine we live in Florida. We typically have a rough draft of something called a hurricane plan. Right? Every year we face that threat. Right? There's a high probability that we're going to get hit with one of those things. So is my insurance up to date? Who do I call in case of an emergency? What's the phone number? Right? What are the best practices in case I get hit with something like this? So look, have a plan, even if it's a one-page plan, right? There's plenty of best practice templates out there that you can use and follow as a small business, right? To set up your incident response plan. Know your the FBI contact numbers. Because if you get hit with a ransomware attack, you got to do three things. Number one, you got to do not pay a ransom. If you pay the ransom, it might be illegal here in the state of Florida, number one. Number two, I've never seen a client that their data has been returned to them 100%, free of anything, right? And there's a 40% chance that you're going to get hit again with the same attack afterwards.
So what you're telling us is these people who are totally unethical are unethical after the fact too? That's insane. Oh, yeah. Right. Yeah. I mean, but it's crazy that people believe this is the case, right? So having good process procedures and things, backups, all of these different things that are made.
The incident response plan, who to call, what to do in case you get hit with ransomware. Look, backups is the number one thing to take care of if you have good, clean backups, you get hit with a ransomware attack today, and then if I know that I can restore things tomorrow from things I already backed up with, last week, I'm not going to pay any mind to the ransomware. I'm not going to freak out. We're going to restore our systems, even though that might be a little painful. But in the end, it's going to be better than not having them in place.
But having encrypted backups, so offline or encrypted backups are
we have three copies.
Yeah.
Right. One is online, the other one is on-prem, and the one is off-site. Right. That's what we have. That's the last thing I need, right? Being hit with a ransomware attack or something else that cripples his business, I got to go back to Cuba, for God's sakes. So it won't be a good day. So that's backups without a word. I mean, I can't overstate how important it is. Having good backups, validating, making sure that they sit on a server or an asset, that you have antivirus on it, if that's where the copy's at, and that it's away from the operational side of the network. Right? But making sure that you have that incident response plan in place, it's the number one thing you got to do. Number two, with the backups. Number three, make sure you understand your insurance policy. and understand what it covers and it doesn't cover. And when you answer, you usually get a questionnaire before you sign up for and get your insurance coverage. Everybody says yes to every control in there. Do you have MFA? Do you use long passwords? Do you validate your backups? You get a chance to say yes on all those things. But what happens is you get hit with a ransomware attack, and you're all of a sudden you need to submit a claim to help you recover the costs associated with that incident. You better make sure that the controls that you said yes to before on that form, you can speak to, because they're going to ask you, hey, send me a copy of such and such policy, or prove to me that you had this control in place when you got hit with this attack, because they're tired. The insurance companies are tired of paying losses. And so
I know on the banking side, our regulators review those policies now with the lens of cybersecurity insurance policies.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And so they look at these things now. That used to not be the case, but they do that now on the banking side. But most business industries don't really have that sort of regulation that kind of helps them. So I think that was phenomenal advice. But I'm going to be honest with you. The reality is most businesses today are dealing with a lot of limited resources. And we're talking about policies, procedures, testing, hardening systems, all these different things. It's a lot. It's a whole lot to deal with, and it's something you got to deal with every single day, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And there's a lot of garbage coming in and out as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
So for organizations that maybe don't have the resources, Mike, what are some thoughts there? Because I know we work with you guys and a number of other companies to help us, monitor and review and test and do all these different things. But what can the typical small business owner do as well?
Yeah. So again, the small business, we'll go back to the fundamentals, right? Let's assume that you don't have all the resources in place. You may have one guy that's an IT guy. That's it, right? Look, again, I can't overstate how important it is to have strong, complex passwords. The longer the password, the better it is, the harder it is for somebody to try to attack you. If you have the ability of putting in multi-factor authentication, I encourage you to have that be enforced. Right? So strong passwords coupled with multi-factor authentication reduces your attack exposure area. Know who you're doing business with. If you have third-party vendor suppliers, understand what kind of access you're giving them if you have to, right? That integration, understand, who you have interconnectivity with. Make sure that your users understand or get trained on email phishing, what to look for. Keep that top of mind, right? October is Cybersecurity Month, right? There's newsletters out there that you can use, you can leverage. I encourage everyone to submit those. If you don't have a resource like UDT, for instance, that can supply your whole training awareness program, then you make sure you use and you share those newsletters and keep those employees informed in terms of what they're getting from an email. And you're going to get hit with email campaigns always. And you know what? You might be small, but the smaller the better for me as a hacker.
Yeah, it's easier.
It's easier, and I can pivot from there into somebody else's network.
Yeah.
Right. So, if you have cameras, make sure those cameras have passwords on them, on those things, especially if they're tied to your network and they might be externally facing, right? You might have those cameras that they're available to the world. Make sure that the default password is not maintained on that video camera once it's installed. Okay. Same thing for a printer. Okay. Printers are extremely underlooked. Everybody forgets about the printer and the vulnerabilities that a printer may have. So the printers have USB ports, right? And those USB ports, you may have somebody that comes into your office and sticks a USB stick into your printer and just leaves it there. And that USB stick may have Wi-Fi capabilities. And all of a sudden I am in your network trying to, this thing sends transmissions out and route data and send it out. So again, remove the default settings of your printers. Change the password settings on those. Right? Make sure you have everybody talks about a VPN. VPNs are extremely important because if you go to a Starbucks, and I can tell you, we can demonstrate this in 5 minutes. I can mimic the Starbucks network and grab your data while you're trying to log in. You're thinking you're logging into a Starbucks Wi-Fi network, but you're actually probably logging into a bad actor's network.
Yep.
And so look, these guys are after data. They live off data. The more data packets that they can extract from that transmission, and they get what they get in the middle of between you and your corporate network, and they start stealing all that data or recording all that data. You never know how it can be used to leverage or exploit your networks, right? So use a VPN, for God's sakes. If you never log into a network that you don't know, oh yeah, everybody wants Wi-Fi connectivity, but do it in a safe manner, for God's sakes.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, and most people think of VPN, right, as I'm going to try to hide my IP address so I can access maybe a TV show or something like that I wasn't, it's permissible in my state, or maybe I want to throw some sports bets out there, and maybe I'm not in a state that accepts that. That's where most people think of VPNs, but there's a really nice security component to VPNs that most companies use every single day.
Yeah.
One of the first things I do, I know when I leave the house, is I turn my Wi-Fi and my Bluetooth off on my phone. The second I walk out of my house, I turn those things off. And the only time I would log into anything is if I'm in one of my locations, or if it's a completely secure network that I have the utmost confidence in, because it is very, very, very scary, because it does happen fast. I've seen you demonstrate this. I've seen other people demonstrate this. It's scary as hell. But the reality is most people are not going to hear what we're saying here today. They're not going to listen to everything you said, Mike. So what should banks do? What should small businesses do? What should individuals do once they already got they've already faced a breach. They've already had an issue. What do we do to minimize the damage? Let's start on the business side.
So on the business side, right, it's important that you have, it all depends on what you have in terms of resources, right? But that's a business, again, definitely has to fall back on procedures and a playbook. And I say that over and over again because that reduces the amount of stress that you're going to undergo, right? If you have a plan in place, you'll be able to understand, all right, can we check our backups, right? Somebody check our backups, make sure that they're clean. Somebody run an antivirus on them. Hey, did we get hit with a ransomware attack? Okay, let's call 3 people. FBI, because they may have the unencryption keys for the attack. Call the insurance company, right? To see if to make sure that make them aware that you got hit with a confirmed ransomware attack. That's number 2. They might recommend somebody, a third party, to come in there and help you restore your systems. Or you may have that trusted advisor already you could turn to. Make sure that trusted advisor is, you add them to your insurance company's preferred partner list. Very important. That way you could call that trusted partner, like a UDT, for instance, like, with us. You always call us and we can go in there and help you deal through that incident, right? So insurance plan, contact FBI, contact incident response playbook, and then that third party that you can turn to help you take through the steps.
Yeah, right? and I would highly recommend anyone who doesn't have that third option already in place today. If you don't have a contract with someone that will already be on call for you to come help, we actually have 2 or 3 that we have under contract that we just have the ability to reach out if there's a problem, just because you need multiple resources, right? So you just never know. But if you don't have one, at least do the research and know who to start reaching out to first. But the best thing you could do is go ahead and have that conversation, do the vendor due diligence, get those people under contract so you have a direct line to someone to immediately start taking action for you.
Right. And make sure again, validate your backups, right? Yeah. Make sure those backups are clean and they're in place, and somebody's always checking them, and you can test the restores. Test that you're able to restore your systems before the thing happens. do partial restores and do full restores. And we're talking a little bit, higher sophistication in terms of the maturity of the cybersecurity network, right? Or the practice rather. But those are kind of the essential things that you need to do if you got.
Yeah, and the faster you can do that, the faster you can start to restore trust in yourself, in your employees, and especially your customers. Right. The faster you can do that.
There's another thing that I see most businesses do, and again, I'm talking about a higher level of maturity in terms of the cybersecurity practice. People bring in all these tools, all these technology tools, right? They come in and bring in these detection toys. And it looks beautiful, all those green, red, and yellow lights, but they forget to test them over the time.
Yeah.
And it's like having an alarm company in your house, and you got all these sensors. They might be quiet, right? You got a sensor in the window, and the window gets broken into, and the sensor doesn't go off, or the sensor sends the wrong alert back to the monitoring company. You got to test the sensors that those tools are using and installed in your environment, and test those against real world threats. Like if it's a ransomware, let's test yourself against a ransomware attack.
Yeah.
Do a ransomware simulation.
Yeah.
Right. Or and see if those trigger points are those alert rules are being triggered correctly. Right. Do that at least once a year. And then do an incident response tabletop. Get around a table with all the people that you have in your incident response team, which could be 3, it could be 5, it could be 10. But go through the steps of that incident response plan using a simple scenario. Hey, we get hit with a ransomware attack tomorrow. What do we do?
Yeah.
What are the steps?
Great advice. And, the other thing that I've seen a lot of problems with is just noise. There's so much noise that happens, network equipment and these systems. And I know we review internally all the time. We work with third parties. We work with you guys as well to help us kind of dilute that down to what is actually problems that we need to review and take action on. And that's super important. So
it is.
With 2.5 minutes left, Mike, I think we kind of,
we can go all day here, Corey.
We can do it
24 hours a day.
We could just drop this on YouTube. We'll do a live stream. It'll be an all-day event. We'll get millions of followers, Mike. Probably not the right ones, but with the last few minutes that we have left, tell everyone how they can get a hold of yourself with UDT. Because if any of this stuff is stressful or maybe not super clear, or there's tons of more questions, getting in touch with someone like Mike and like UDT to help you start to prepare better is super important to taking the first step to protecting yourselves. So Mike, I'll let you wrap us up here with how to get in touch.
Yeah, so thanks for that. It's real simple. To go to udtonline.com. All of our contact information is there, and there's a red button there that says if you've been, if you're experiencing an incident, there's a way for you to hit that red button, the simple button, the easy button, and it gets a hold of our SOC and NOC personnel, and so we can help you navigate through that incident. But yeah, it's I encourage, and look, I'm very careful in terms of the alerts that I send out and the notifications. I'm really I always think 3 times before I send out any notifications. I encourage everyone to pay attention of what's going on now. It's going to get a little messier here. It's going to be chaotic here for the next number of months. Could be going out between now and February. So just be careful, right? Just there's basic proactive things you can do right now, so you don't become that victim and have something impact your business or your identity, right? So don't become that victim. And so everybody stay safe out there. And if you need help, just give us a call.
Yeah, absolutely. And Mike, I appreciate you taking some time to kind of talk through this. Your expertise is hugely critical to getting information out to our customers, to our employees, to just everyone else in the banking or financial services industry. You guys have been a phenomenal resource for us. We've been used you at a board meeting to kind of like really scare the crap out of our board members so that they knew that the investment that they're putting into cybersecurity tools was going in a good place. But no, we also look forward to, like you mentioned, it is October, it is Cybersecurity Awareness Month, and we couldn't be more thankful for UDT in helping us collaborate to put as much content on tips and tricks and things that you can do to better protect yourself. So, this is just one video, one piece of content that we'll be putting out, but we look forward to working with you guys throughout the month of October and getting information out to people as best we can. But with that, we'll go ahead and wrap, and I appreciate it.
All right, Corey, you take care.
You too, brother.